and welcome to the August episode of More or Less. We are excited to bring our back to school episode. I'm Peggy.
I'm Cody.
I'm James.
Cody, how are you today?
I am doing very well. James, how are you?
Excellent, man. I'm glad to see you again, family.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I want to let everybody know that this podcast is brought to you by Baker Orthotics and Prosthetics, and we are here for all of your orthotic and prosthetic needs, and we have a solution that is right for you. Give us a call today at 817-332-7313, and someone with a cheery attitude will pick up that phone and definitely direct you to the best path of care. Today, we are talking about back to school, like you said.
Can you believe that? It's already
crazy.
August, I know.
Woo! 2022 is going by really fast because we don't have so much, let's say, on our plate with COVID and all of those things as heavily now, and we're kind of returning to a normal sense of, we've done the vacations and all of those things and getting back into the swing of things. But back to school is upon us, and I've been a child in school, and I have children in school, and I want to share with everybody, what my experience was when I was a child going back, and how parents can help cope with a child with limb loss or limb difference as they go to school. So let's just start off with in a school. It was let's put it this way. It was a constant awareness of my surroundings, a constant awareness of my schedules, and a constant awareness of the distance that I had to travel as a person with an above the knee prosthesis. I would, especially after, we moved to those class schedules where they're spread across campuses and everything, and, you're moving in and out of class. It's like, generally it's a middle school type setting, that's where things kind of really differentiated for me as someone with limb loss or limb difference. And I would often get classes that were, very far apart. One side of the campus to the other, it's the next class. You got 5 minutes to travel down there. You've got a bag of books. There's a crowd of people you're walking through. And for me, that was, constant observation, diligence, vigilance of, am I going to fall down? And yes, I did. I fell quite often. I learned how to fall as I was bumped and shuffled and moved around. But at the time, I will tell you, technology wasn't necessarily at the level that it is at this point. So falling was, much more normalized for the amputee, the person with limb loss, limb difference. And I was just trying to mitigate all of that and limit it. And by getting my beeline, path to the next class and get there and get it done. But it was a lot of walking for me, and we have to realize that, not only do adults expend a lot of energy as amputees, children do as well. And growing up, I would come home frequently exhausted, and my sound limb, my left side, would hurt. I would get shin splints from walking those long distances every day. So that is to say, I would recommend. Now, I'll say that in the 80s and 90s, my parents didn't have a lot of resources, didn't really understand completely, how to deal with a child with limb loss or limb difference. And I would say to the parent now, if you can do this, get accommodations for your child. Work their schedule in such a way that it is conducive to their limb loss, and their energy expenditure. An above the knee amputee, we've said it before, uses 60% more energy than someone with both limbs. And so, when you're getting those schedules done, look at it, check out where those rooms are, get a map, and say, hey, is there any way we can reshape this to make it more streamlined and reduce the amount of walking? And then especially when I was in middle school, we had a lot of stairs. I would have classes on the third floor, back down to the first floor, up to the second, and then all over the place, down in the basement for band, you name it. And I'm not talking little flights of stairs. This is an old, like marble floored, or not marble, but granite floor, 1930s. It was a giant building, and I, it was slick. There wasn't an elevator, and no escalator, nothing to help with assisting of movement. So just be aware of those kinds of obstacles or challenges that face your child with limb loss as it comes to physicality. And when it comes to the actual learning process and the ability to learn, no different, no change. Absolutely ran along with the same other kids with academia. I didn't necessarily participate in a lot of recreational activities. I wasn't doing a lot of sports, but that doesn't mean that people can't do sports as children. These children can get out there and run and participate in marching band if they want, so that being said, I would recommend that people look into recreational prosthetics for their children. And then, while we're on that topic, if Peggy, you want to speak real quick to, I want everybody to know there's potential change for children in policy for the orthotic and prosthetic field in regards to recreational prosthetics.
It's a potential change, but it's going to be preceded by a lot of advocacy efforts and a fight. So there is a movement between AOPA and NWAOP, which are the two kind of prosthetic bodies, so to speak, professional organizations for clinicians and in the industry to normalize recreational prosthetics for children. So right now, if you have a child and you want to get them a running blade, your choices are either basically pay out of pocket, do a fundraiser, or go for a grant. Typically, those devices are not covered by insurance. They're considered not medically necessary. There's a movement to deem recreation and activity and sports along the lines of it is medically necessary. It makes children stronger, it makes children healthier, it helps with mental health, it helps with all of that, with attention, with activity, with body strength.
Ability to get scholarships.
Exactly. Socially, all of that, it helps. So there is a movement between those organizations to have insurance companies have to start covering those devices, especially for children, and then they hope to leapfrog off of that into adults. It's something that's on the horizon. We are definitely keeping track of it. Keep tuning in. We will keep you abreast of any opportunities to become involved with that fight and with that advocacy effort. I do want to piggyback a little bit on what Cody was saying about working on the schedule and helping with spacing of classes. You do have rights as a parent and as a child in the school without going directly into special education where you have the IEP. And I know a lot of people know that term, the individual education plan. That is typically more for, not always, but that is typically more for academic accommodations to curriculum. If you need accommodations and adaptations to basically the structure and the physical setting of the school day, which would include extended time between classes, which would include a preferential schedule, which would include having an elevator key if one is available, then you really need to go to your school and ask to work on the Section 504 plan. The 504 plan is a way to get those accommodations written into your child's record so that they have to be followed. So that instead of going to your principal and saying, Cody's having trouble walking between classes, I want his classes closer. Okay. Without the 504 plan, the school does not have to follow what you're asking. If you have a 504 plan, it is a legally binding document that's developed between yourself and the school officials, classroom teacher, your child. You can bring your prosthetist into it, any therapist into it that you need, to really figure out how are we going to physically structure our child's school day so that they have the best chance for success. If walking between classes is too laborious and they're tired by the time they get there, let's see if we can move the classes closer together. Let's see if we can give extended time. Let's see if we can have somebody help with carrying the backpack. Let's get a second pack of books at that location so you don't have to carry them. There are so many options. I want parents to know that the 504 plan is available to everybody. It's a document that's fluid. You write it with your school. We have a lot of resources on your educational rights as a parent and as a student on the Whole Person Network. If you're interested in getting those resources, talk to your clinician, talk to your prosthetic facility about joining the Whole Person Network. We'll be happy to send you an invite to this private network so that you can meet with other parents and so that you can have access to all of these resources. Cody, you didn't have trouble with academia. You're above knee amputee. If you have an upper extremity amputation, you may start having issues with scribing tasks or handwriting tasks, typing. There's a lot of accommodations that can be made in the general academic setting that can set your child up for success, not to provide an unfair advantage, but basically to equalize the playing field so that your child isn't fighting against the issues with their disability in addition to trying to learn. So really, you need to know about those 504 plans. You need to be active. And it's something that'll change. If you go in the second semester and your child's in a class and they physically can't do something or they're having issues, go in and change your 504 plan. It's a fluid document. It's made for that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. I want to turn our attention now to parents who live with limb loss and limb difference who are sending their children off to school.
Absolutely.
James, you got some kiddos.
Talk to us. What's it like?
Well, absolutely. I want to also bring in one caveat where you were talking. As an athlete with limb loss in high school and elementary, there were a lot of limitations on sports. Wrestling, having to wrestle with it off, created a tremendous differential. Swimming class and going to regular class and having time enough for the prosthetic to adjust, because I would be different sizes based on whatever event I was doing. And so those things are definitely what you were talking about, Peggy, getting an understanding with the teachers for an extended passing period, and also allowing your kid to be have some freedom in these high schools. I didn't have a lot of, even though the locker rooms are showers were open, it didn't mean it was handicap accessible or safe transfers in those areas. But as a limb loss parent, some of the things that I know I've had to face is I had to do some planning, especially when they were younger, to make sure that I kept my prosthetic ready to step into, to get up and take care of things and all those things, get them out to the bus stop on time when they were running behind and all those things that kids do. You have to make some adjustments, but also, making sure my kids understood my challenges as a parent and the things that I face and how to respond when other kids made fun of the fact that they had a parent with limb loss. There were so many different aspects, but I got to tell you that you two have really been encouraging and enlightening. Talking about your experiences, Cody, I know I'm the focus on being a parent, but what you did with mentioning the fact that we are more than capable of being able to compete in the academic world. And Peggy, you mentioned at least giving us a level playing field in getting to the classes, and being able to transverse without being knocked over, or when we have our revisions, which is a part of what we experience growing up as well, going to crutches at times, all those things. This is encouraging for me. I didn't have access to a lot of the information you guys are sharing, and now that we are doing this, this is as awesome. And Peggy, you're right. Everyone has a different academic challenge, or may face some challenges. But as far as for me as an athlete, I just wanted to be able to compete and be able to get to my classes, and then have a prosthetic that would allow me to play football, where they would make me wear extra padding, which would stiffen the leg, and it was like being above the knee for me to participate in, because of the way they would make me rapid to compete against other kids. And then playing in the same leg in basketball with a rubber foot was quite a challenge. But
I question real quick, does anybody know of any limitations they put on, children who play sports on a team for the school? And what kind of accommodations do they have to make for children with a prosthetic on?
So I've actually done some research on this for a different project that we're working on. And right now, there is no specific rule that governs all youth activities in a specific sport on what needs to be safeguarded for your prosthesis when you play. We were looking at football, for example, and the requirements really vary region to region, school to school, team to team. So what would be helpful, and what the industry is working towards, industry meaning the prosthetic clinicians, those organizations, that the alphabet soup organizations that we talked about earlier, are really working towards standardizing, so that our students know, if you play football in Iowa, your prosthesis has to be padded this way so that you don't get hurt, and so that somebody else doesn't get hurt. And that padding will be accepted when you go to play football in Texas or Pennsylvania. Right now, that doesn't exist. They are working on trying to standardize that. But again, there are so many variations and variables with prosthetics and with levels, that in and of itself is going to be a task. But I do believe once that becomes more standardized, I'm hoping that we start seeing even more kids become involved in some of these activities. Because what happens is so many students go to sign up for a sport, and then the coach is like, I don't know what to do with this child. They're not safe. That's usually what we hear. They're not safe on my field. I want to protect everybody. And then the student is either benched or has to really fight to be able to play. And then you eliminate a lot of kids who just aren't natural advocates or haven't gotten there yet. So once that is standardized, I think that that's going to help, but we're not there yet. But it's definitely something that we're working towards. Other sports are a little bit more standard. Swimming, it's pretty straightforward that you're not going to wear your device when you're swimming. Track and field, very standardized, but it's those contact sports that are really presenting issues, and it's what we're working on.
I've seen they allow a lot of amputees to wrestle. That's pretty straightforward.
Correct.
So I've seen a lot of amputees go into wrestling, and they don't wear their prosthesis during the match.
Right.
That's fantastic to know that we're, at least looking at these things and thinking about how to comprehensively allow children to participate in all activities in school. I was in marching band. I didn't march. I was in auxiliary pit, with the xylophones and the big drums and all of those things. But I was included to some degree. and I did what I could.
Mhm.
I know that there are many children who could definitely keep up and march, especially with a comprehensive prosthesis that could keep up with them on the field, as they take these steps in very exacting measures, you know. So children are very versatile, very adaptable, and able to take on tasks that a lot of people discount that they could possibly take on, you know. So um, as a parent though, of children who are, I would say, able-bodied, sending them back to school is, you know, very, very similar to what other parents go through. And I would just tell you, um, my experience has only been limited in that I'm not necessarily able to coach them as how should I put, involved as I would like to be for some of their sports. My daughter plays soccer. I don't necessarily kick the ball with her. I'm not running and chasing the things, stuff like that. But after that, I can help them with their homework. I can get all their supplies, and I can see them off to school easily every day. Now, Peggy, you are actually a teacher, or have been,
I
yes?
I was I was a special ed teacher, actually right after, before my limb loss, before my amputation, and after. I was a teacher for the vision impaired, so I taught blind students in the public school setting. So I wanted to speak very quickly about being a teacher with limb loss returning to the classroom. I remember very vividly getting ready to return. I live in Virginia. We used to only go to school in September. So I remember my first September after my amputation getting ready to go back into the classroom. And it's a nerve-wracking experience. First of all, so I taught blind students. So with that, my students had to be told that I was an amputee. So I struggled with, do I tell them? I decided to tell them because I didn't want them hearing from other people. I'm also would go into the regular education classes with my students. So their peers would see my amputation and talk about a teachable moment. If you have a teacher going in wearing a prosthetic, the first thing I always do is I always call it out. That's kind of how I roll. I'm a very direct person. I'll go introduce myself, let them know, what student I'm there for, or if you're the classroom teacher, this is who you are, welcome to the grade. And then I usually just say, as you can see, I'm walking with a prosthetic. Who knows what a prosthetic is? I'll take it off. I'll let the students hold it. I'll talk about it. I'll talk very quickly about what happened to me because I don't necessarily want to go into a deep dive with students depending on their age, right? And that's something that I feel really develops with time and with a relationship. So as you develop a rapport with your class, you might be able to go into a little bit more of experiences as appropriate. But I always tell new teachers who are new amputees going into the classroom for the first time, don't be afraid to talk about it. It's something that's part of you and it's normalizing disability. Any opportunity that you have to normalize what it's like to live with anything different, I think students always benefit. So I would recommend always just going in, talking about it very quickly. I've actually had issues with parents who were concerned about their children's safety with me as a teacher. I get it. All right.
Mhm.
I was a new prosthetic user. Their students were very young. They were blind. They were scared. Um, and that's when it really helps to have the support of your administration with you for some of those meetings. Maybe even popping in during your first back to school night and just saying a kind word, the principal saying they do a great job, or anything to kind of put those parents' fears at rest, especially if you're teaching the younger grades where parents are a little bit more concerned and a little bit more, hovering, the kindergarten, first grade type things. Let parents know, yeah, I use a prosthetic. I can get around with the kids. I'm doing just fine. And then it's a null point. It's when you try as a teacher to kind of conceal it or hide it, or the students feel like you're trying to sneak something past them, that
Mhm.
they're going to sniff it out and they're going to call you out on it. So bring it out on your own terms is what I always say to new teachers who are going in. Cody?
Yeah. I want to kind of piggyback on what you're saying there about bringing it out into the open, from a different perspective. As a student, it was very beneficial for me to request that, and this gentleman was very kind to do this for me, request that someone who is knowledgeable with prosthetics to come in and do just a brief presentation about limb loss, limb difference, bring some prosthetics in. You know, he wasn't necessarily a prosthetist. I do that now as a clinician. I go to schools, I give little presentations. James, I think you go out and give presentations as well.
I do.
What kind of feedback do you get from children after you do something like that?
You know, it not. I think the term the normal that you use, the normalcy that you bring to it, but also I get more like, wow, you're like Iron Man. You
Exactly.
know, the cool thing. You know, like, wow. You know, and instead of it being detrimental or seen as a negative, especially you know, when they have a classmate. As I've just we'll be doing this coming year. There's a young first grader that they have asked me to come speak at the school auditorium to help kids welcome and encourage this new amputee and to set a tone of what's possible. And so I'll do a lot of things and encourage them all, but by demonstrating that and talking about what we can do and what we do and how active we have become and can be. I found it has opened the door for kids to like want to take pictures with me, like I'm Crypto, the dog from Super Pets. You know, they're like, oh my God, I won't say Superman, but I'm some kind of person that they're like, man, this guy is this and is really cool, and it's been awesome to go into schools. Plus, look at the education you're able to give them, and compassion, and talk about understanding other people. It's just a great opportunity for us. I know, Cody, that's close to your heart, is you know, and then what you did, giving those the prosthetics away for you know, to the young girl at the CAF event that you recently did. You know, you just can't beat these moments that we get to be a part of.
Yeah. It really helps to not only, you know, bring that child a sense of normal, like we said, or just involvement or inclusivity. It helps other people to be less ignorant about limb loss and limb different. Their teachers, administrators, the parents that come along. You can plan this day ahead of time and say, hey, we have somebody who would like to speak to the class for an hour down the road, and schedule it out and make sure that people are there and are aware of what's happening. Communication brings knowledge, which brings peace of mind, which brings inclusivity, and you know, the community can come around people and treat them like a normal human being, which has not always been the case throughout our history as a society. And the more we have the opportunity to do these things, and the more we take advantage of those opportunities, then we will make a society that is better on the back end. So
Absolutely. So I do want to remind people, we do have a lot of resources to help if you are a parent with limb loss going in, if you are a teacher with limb loss entering the classroom, or if you were a student. On our Whole Person Network, we do have the educational rights documents. We'll help you in any way that you need. We also have some great coloring sheets that depict adults and children with prosthetics, animals with prosthetics, even superheroes with different prosthetics and disabilities. Feel free to print them off, take them in, share them. It's a great way to kind of normalize things that people don't see every day. Cody, what were you going to say?
We have scholarships too.
Yes.
So for your kids in high school, check those out. Yep. And talk to your prosthetist. They would be the best one to be able to set up a meeting like that with an educational time.
Yes, definitely. So. And just a quick note about colleges. Every college does have like a disability department. It has different names: accessibility, disability, inclusion, accommodations. if you are a student who is heading to college for the first time or returning to college, and you are running into some of these issues with time between classes, scheduling issues, scribe issues, if you're an upper extremity, any of that, those departments are there to help you as well. Take advantage of them. Colleges and schools want their students to succeed. They really do. Anything that they can do to help a student succeed without watering down expectations, everybody wins. So,
Love
all
that.
right. It was great talking with everybody. I hope everybody has a fantastic back to school season, whether or not you're the teacher going in, like my husband, who is entering his last year before he retires. So, yay. Or students going back to school, or a college student, or whether or not you're a parent and you're taking your child to school for the first time and you're kind of having a scared moment because kindergarten's hard, right? It's going to be great. We want to hear from you. We want to hear how it's going. Talk to your prosthetist about joining whole person. Send us messages. Let us know how you're doing. We're supporting you. You've got a whole load of cheerleaders in your corner, and you've got this.
There's a community out there for you, and just want you to know Baker Prosthetics and Orthotics is here alongside you every step of the way.
Absolutely. It's great talking to you both.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.